Alright, geometry people. So first of all, overall, this quiz, you guys did a really awesome job. Really proud of you guys. Our geometry team talked, and overall we saw really great scores. So that's awesome that you guys are getting this. It seems like a lot of you are enjoying the trig and feel really confident with it. So props to you guys. We're really proud of you. This video is going to go over the whole quiz, and you can skip to the section that you need. So if you got number 1 totally right, skip to number 2 or number 3 or wherever you need. I'm going to go through all of them, so just figure out what it is that you need to go over. Number 1 was very much a review. So this was kind of back to our old stuff, where we did just solving for sides. So let's get our, oops, that's not the right one. Let's get our sides matched up. So 60 degrees, opposite of that is the x side. The y side was the adjacent, and the 10 side was the hypotenuse. Now on this one, you basically had to solve twice. So I'm going to do one in green, one in blue. We'll do x first. Draw a line down there. So if I'm going to solve for x, I'm going to need to obviously use x. Can't really use y because I can't have two variables, and then I'm going to use 10. Well, opposite and hypotenuse make sine. So sine of 60 has to be equal to, if I follow my SOHCAHTOA, sine is this one right here. Opposite is x, so that's got to go on top. Hypotenuse is 10. That's got to go on the bottom. Okay, since we're solving for a side, we're going to be cross multiplying. Do your circles. Okay, x times 1 is x. Equals goes in the middle. And then on the other side, we have 10 times sine of 60. Okay, plug that into your calculator. Remember 10 sine 60. If you've got one of mine, you got to hit 60, then sine, then multiply by 10. No matter what though, 8.66 should be your answer for x. Now y, we're going to do something pretty similar. However, obviously I have to use y. Not going to use x, but I'm still going to use the 10. This time I have adjacent and hypotenuse. That means I'm going to use cosine. So this is the y side. Cosine of 60 this time. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. You got to follow the order. Adjacent is y, hypotenuse is 10. Still going to be cross multiplying because it's not an angle. We're solving for a side. So we're going to do cross multiplying. Y times 1 is y. 10 times cosine of 60 is going to go on the other side. Again, plug it into your calculator, and we get actually a nice number 5. So that one worked out kind of cool. Down at the bottom here, now you're solving for angles. This is more the new stuff that we were doing. If you're solving for an angle, you must use inverse. So that's that sine, cosine, tangent with the little -1 symbol that we've talked about. So like you guys did, I saw a lot of you writing your labels. Props to you, because that's fantastic. So this is my angle, opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse. I only have opposite and adjacent. If I go back to the top, TOA, which is tangent, is the one that matches that. Whoops. So tangent of the question mark has to be opposite over adjacent because we're following TOA. O comes before A. So, oops, sorry guys. 14 has to go on top, 42 has to go on the bottom. To get this question mark by itself, I got to get rid of this tangent. Well, what gets rid of tangent? Inverse tangent. So that's where the inverse comes from. Some of you kind of choked on that a little bit and didn't remember what to do. That's okay. Inverse tangent of both sides. The 14 and the 42 are already there. These guys are going to cancel out, so the question mark angle is equal to inverse tangent of 14 divided by 42. So on your calculators, if you're using mine, you had to do 14 divided by 42 equals, then shift, then tangent. If you've got your own, it's going to be different, obviously. But no matter what, 18.43 degrees, which then rounds down to 18 degrees would be your answer. Over here on the other side, very similar. Here's our angle. 23 is the opposite side. Adjacent is blank. And 36 is the hypotenuse. Opposite, hypotenuse are 2 that we're going to use this time. Remember your some old horse caught a horse taking oats away. Opposite hypotenuse makes it go to sine. So sine of the question mark equals 23/36. Yes, it has to go in this order because it's opposite over hypotenuse. Same order as usual. If I'm trying to get this question mark by itself, I gotta get rid of sine. Well, what gets rid of sine? Inverse sine. So that's on that side. Oops, I crunched my space here a little bit. 23/36. Sorry. So when I do inverse sine of sine, those are going to cancel out again. Question mark angle is then going to be inverse sine of 23 divided by 36. Remember, you got to do this part first if you're using one of my calculators, then shift, then sine. No matter what, though, you should get 39.71 degrees, which then rounds up because it's 0.71. It's either going to stay at 39 or round up to 40, and it rounds up to 40 degrees. I'm rounding because it says round to the nearest degree. So if you truly follow directions, you put 18 and 40 as your answers. I didn't take off if you didn't, though. Now on to the back side. These guys were the big ones. These are the ones that are newer material that we've been working on most recently. The biggest thing is getting your diagram figured out. So let's read through it. You are hunting a squirrel that is in a tree. So let's draw the tree. And you're off to the side with your little gun shooting your squirrel. And here's the bushy-tailed squirrel. He's a really fat squirrel up in the tree. Okay, wow, he's really huge. That's like a cat, but it's really a squirrel. Okay, so there's a giant squirrel in the tree, and it's 20 feet away from where you stand. The angle of elevation to the squirrel is 72 degrees, and you are looking for the distance between you and the squirrel. Now, some of you got kind of mixed up with where to put the numbers. Okay, squirrel is up in the tree. We don't know how high up in the tree. You are standing away from him, so there's our triangle, and you're going to shoot up at an angle, obviously. Most of you guys remembered that the angle has to go here because it has to go with a horizontal line. Remember, angle of elevation is from the ground up. Angle of depression is from a horizontal line going down. So this has to be our angle of elevation. It's the only one that's got a horizontal line. You're standing 20 feet away from the tree. Okay, now if I tell you I'm standing 20 feet away from something, do I mean 20 feet away from the top or from the bottom? Normally I'm referring to the bottom. I don't usually tell you I'm standing 20 feet away from the top of the door or the top of the building. Okay, it's usually the bottom. You're looking then for the distance between you and the squirrel, which is the direct distance here, how far you're going to actually shoot. So that's where the picture comes in. Some of you guys got kind of messed up on the picture, and that threw off the rest of your entire problem. But if you got this right, that's awesome, because that definitely got you some points for figuring that out. If you got the picture right, now it's just a matter of setting it up like usual. It looks almost exactly like the stuff on the front side. 72 degrees is your angle. So here's your opposite side, here's your adjacent side, and here's your hypotenuse. Okay? You're going to use hypotenuse and adjacent. Okay, remember your SOHCAHTOA. Always write those out. If you're using adjacent and hypotenuse, that's going to be cosine. So cosine of 72 degrees. Make sure to follow cosine. Some of you got that part wrong. Cosine goes adjacent on top, hypotenuse on the bottom. 20 is the adjacent, hypotenuse is x, so it has to look like that. You don't use inverse for this one because you're not solving for an angle. You're solving for a side. So this is like number 1 on the front where you had to cross multiply. If you solve for a side, cross multiply. Okay? X times cosine 72 goes on one side because they're in a bubble together. They're circled. It's called cross multiplying for a reason because you multiply them. 20 times 1 is 20. If I want to get x by itself and it's being multiplied by cosine 72, all I have to do is do the opposite, which is divide by cosine 72. Remember, I'm not trying to get rid of the cosine. I'm trying to get rid of cosine 72, so it's a group all together. That's why I can divide. So if I do 20 divided by cosine 72, you should have gotten 74, or 64, I apologize, 0.72, and it's feet for the unit. It didn't say how to round, but since we usually round to 2 decimal places, that's what I put my answer as. All right, so 64.72 would have been the correct answer. All right, now back up to the top here for our last one. This one says the length of a building's shadow. Oh, that didn't have a little apostrophe. That's really annoying. Bad grammar. The length of a building's shadow is 48 feet when the angle of depression is 35.3 degrees. Find the height of the building. Okay, so here's my building. I have a green building. Building. Okay, now, some of you got a little bit confused as to where the shadow would go, which is a little strange because most of you, well, all of you should have shadows. And unless you're Peter Pan, your shadow should go on the ground. Some of you put your shadow here. No. No bueno. Shadows go on the ground. All right. So let's just confirm that right now. Shadows on the ground. So the length of the building's shadow is 48 feet. 48 should have gone there. Angle of depression is 35.3. Some of you left off that 0.3. It is important. It's supposed to be in the problem. Now here's the thing. Angle of depression and angle of elevation have to have a horizontal line. But back here in this other problem, we said that angle of elevation was from a horizontal line going up, which would be this angle right here. This is actually your angle of elevation in this spot. I want angle of depression though. Okay, so I would need a horizontal line. Oops, not what I wanted. A horizontal line right there. I don't know why my pen is suddenly sticking around, sorry. Okay, so I would need a horizontal line there because technically this is my angle of depression, 35.3 degrees. Get out of the way, little pen. Okay, now you could have done a couple things. You could have used this triangle and moved the 48 over to here and then solved for the height. However, there are some other ways you could do it as well. You could have realized that since angle of depression and angle of elevation are the same, this also is 35.3 degrees. And it looks like a 0, but it's actually degrees. Okay. And then X is the height of the building. A lot of you guys were able to figure out that X should then go there. But once you have that figured out, it's pretty easy. Again, you could have used this triangle. I prefer to use the bottom one just because I'm used to having it there. But if you didn't, that's okay. I'm going to show solving for that one though. So if you did it a different way, you should still get the same answer, just not the same route that I took. So the angle's here, so this is our opposite, this is our adjacent, and this is our hypotenuse. Okay, so we're using the opposite and the adjacent side. If you check your SOHCAHTOA, that should be tangent. Tangent of 35.3. Yes, you can have a decimal for an angle, it's okay. Tangent is opposite over adjacent, so X must go on top, 48 must go on the bottom. Since we are not solving for a side, we are not going to use inverse. We're again going to do the cross multiplying route. X times 1 is in one group, so it's just X. And then 48 times tangent 35.3 is on the other side. If you did it correctly, it should be 33.99, and yes, it rounds up to 99, technically, feet. Okay? If you rounded up to 34, we still took that as appropriate because it is able to round up to that as well. But I rounded it to 2 decimal places, which technically would be 33.99. Hopefully that helps you guys again. Props to you all for doing really well. Hopefully this was a great quiz for you. If not, maybe talk to your teacher about doing a retake.